Welcome back. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing the Atlanta Falcons 7-round mock draft. We did a full mock draft overall, all 255 picks, and so we're going to be breaking down all of the Falcons picks here. And so before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, and also ring the bell to get notified whenever we create new content. We've already done a 3-round mock draft for all the NFL teams, including the Falcons, so go check that out. This will be a 7-round one. We have other 3-round and 7-round mock draft series planned leading up all the way to the 2024 NFL Draft. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified whenever those videos drop. Let's orient you a little bit what you're seeing here. Obviously, at the top, you can see what round it is. On the left, you can obviously see the draft order. The Falcons pick is going to be in bold. We'll get to that here in a second. We wanted to include a couple of the picks before and after, just to give some context of who was taken off the board. Also, then to the right, I included then a couple other potential options that they could take there and who was still available, and actually then what team ended up taking them and what pick. One thing to actually, specifically for the Falcons video, is there was a lot of, obviously the Falcons are one of the hot candidates to go trade up to get a QB or to go get Justin Fields. Ryan and I, we talked about it a lot, especially when going through the scenario. And we have done that on our Monday mock drafts where the Falcons trade up. We've also done that in the 3-round mock draft where they trade for a QB named Justin Fields. So we kind of actually wanted to explore a different scenario in this, where the Falcons don't get Justin Fields and they don't have the ability to trade up and go and get the QB that they want. So in this scenario, the Falcons would have gotten a quarterback from some other means, let's say be Russell Wilson or Daniel Jones or Mac Jones or Jimmy Garoppolo. There's some other quarterback, or maybe they roll it back with Desmond Ridder. That's it. Essentially, this mock draft is going to be around the scenario of what happens if the Falcons lose out in the quarterback lottery. And I think it was kind of interesting to go through, because then there is still even a quarterback that they do end up taking here later on that I actually am kind of intrigued about a little bit. If he is there, I think he'd be a good potential developmental prospect just from what I saw of him playing the Big Ten. A little spoiler there. So, but let's get into this pick here. Going with Dallas Turner on this one. I've gone with Rome Odunze. We're not going with Dallas Turner. I think with Raheem Morris as a defensive-minded head coach, I think then with the free agency money as well, I think they're going to go and try and get a guy. I think they're going to be in the T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, potentially even I think Calvin Ridley. I think that would be kind of funny. And to be honest, I think that he would fit into kind of what they'd be looking for. They don't have a number 2 receiver. I think he would pair up well with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I want to throw a review here on what your thoughts are on Dallas Turner.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of physical attributes for an edge rusher, he has elite arm length. He's really strong, has good play strength. He plays well against the run. And in terms of what the Falcons were looking for, I really like the aspect of going and getting an edge rusher, because this was a top 10 defense last year. But I think the big thing that was separating them from being like a top 5 elite defense versus like just being a top 10, like really solid defense was just the fact that they didn't quite have the best edge presence, right? Like they had Calais Campbell kind of playing out there sometimes. But especially with the loss of Grady Jarrett, I felt at times that they struggled to get pressure on the quarterback. And I think here at 8, you have your pick of the litter of all the edge rushers that you could want. And I think going and adding that, Grady Jarrett comes back off his torn ACL. You hopefully re-sign Calais Campbell in free agency. And I think adding a guy like Dallas Turner, he has a lot of versatility. He can play with his hand in the dirt. I will say he probably is better standing just with his length, allowing him to use his just pure athleticism maybe a little bit more than lining him up right over a tackle or on the inside shoulder of a tackle. So, I really like the fit. Again, Raheem Morris going there. Defensive-minded head coach. This Falcons defense again was top 10 last year, and I think that will continue, especially under Raheem Morris's watch, especially with the Dallas Turner pick.
So I hope so. So let's move on to the 2nd round pick though. Here we do have them taking a receiver here, and I do like Jalen Polk. I think similar to kind of if they do go get a Calvin Ridley or somebody else free agency, I still think there's going to be guys here that they can go out. He's going to fit into that slot position. I really like his versatility that he brings. He was a guy that I think Penix Jr. Could lean on a little bit. I mean, in Washington alone, I mean that receiving trio of Odunze, it was Jalen McMillan, and then Jalen Polk as well. I mean, he could lean on all of them. But I think Polk, it can be that consistent guy I think he can go and get 5 catches for you at minimum, have 7 to 8 targets, just a lot of dink and dunks. And I think he can be a guy that you can really move around and pair up really well with Drake London also, because Drake London is your do-it-all kind of receiver, one of, I think, the future best receivers in the league. And so I think that Polk frees him up a little bit and can take attention away from him, and also Kyle Pitts as well.
Yeah. And I think he's just a good compliment because you said he's going to win down the field, I think, a little bit more. Whereas I think Drake London, again, he's going to be the do-it-all guy. He's going to be attacking all 3 levels of the field. Jalen Polk, he does a really good job of stacking DBs and getting over the top, wins off the line of scrimmage. And I really think he was probably a little bit underrated because I think everybody in that offense, their eyes immediately go to Penix and Rome Odunze. And then I think Polk gets a little overlooked in that offense and just how good he actually was. Because I have seen a lot of people, like they don't have him go until the 3rd round. But then I think you see people now, like you see the Chris Sims, the NFL stock exchanges. I think they have Polk honestly pushing up into the 1st round with that second group of wide receivers. And so I really like what he brings to the table. So let's go ahead and move on to the Falcons' 3rd round pick. I believe they have 2, right?
Yeah, they have 2, 74 and 79. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but we have them doubling up here with Jermaine Burton. Again, another outside guy. He's going to be more your like traditional X receiver, right? He's going to be the 6'2", 215, going to be physical. He's going to win down the field. But I really like him just because there's not a lot of like flaws to his game. He's not an elite athlete. He's just going to be like a really solid, do-good receiver. And I think in that Falcons room, outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts, there's not a whole lot of like true like consistent guys. And correct me if I'm wrong there, but
well, there's nobody else really outside of that.
Yeah.
so you are correct.
Well, but going and getting another option for whichever quarterback does come in, I think it is going to be really good because they do have that strong offensive line. They do have Bijan and Tyler Algier, right? And they're going to lean on this run game probably pretty heavily, especially through the first part of the season, while this quarterback is getting adjusted to the system, whether they get a rookie or not. And so I think going in there and getting it just one more weapon, I think is going to be a really solid fit.
Yeah. And I normally, like, I don't mind double dipping in a draft, if there's a good space and you hit other pieces. I don't, but if you're going back-to-back picks, I normally be like, maybe you could spread it out a little bit more. But since they have pick 74 and pick 79 and they're so close, I kind of looked at this as like a luxury pick. And even then, too, when we go then to the next pick, then I think they hit another need as well. But a guy like Jermaine Burton, he's going to be that consistency guy. And I think then you pair him up with Polk and then also Drake London. And then if they get somebody free agency, I really like how that receiving room is developing now. And hopefully something you don't have to worry about. And so, but then moving on, though, now to their next pick, which is a couple picks later, Max Melton, cornerback from Rutgers, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I think one other kind of sneaky need is just going to be a number 2 corner across from A.J. Terrell. Jeff Okuda, I think, had an okay time last season, but he was still banged up with injuries. I don't expect him to be on the team next year. Clark Phillips III also in the second half of the season during his play, he really stepped up and saw a lot of potential. I think one thing for him is just going to be his overall size. I think he might be a little bit more like as a nickelback. So I think that a guy like Max Melton, I think he could be more of that outside corner for him. He's a little bit on the bigger side. So I think that would be an overall good corner setup. And I think you pair him up with A.J. Terrell, who I think either this year or next year, he's going to get paid. But like he's going to get paid. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. You got Jesse Bates in the backfield. And then even into D'Amico Helms, their 7th-round pick from last year. Had a solid season. So
Clark Phillips also had a really good
and that's what. So I think just with his size, he might be a little bit more of a nickel instead of an outside corner. So I think you go get Max Melton. I think it allows for some more flexibility with formations, just considering Phillips' size, but his overall talent is immense. So I really like the way that this secondary is shaping up. Even then, too, you pair this up then as well. But now we get Dallas Turner. You go look at our linebacker room. We still got Caden Ellis. Nate Landman was a diamond in the rough. We have Troy Anderson coming back also from injury. Defense is shaping up extremely well, and you have Grady Jarrett coming back also. So I like this pick, and I think it really rounds out our defense overall as a whole.
Yeah. No, Max Melton, I think, is going to be a riser, especially I think he's going to test really well at the combine.
Yeah.
So I really like this pick just as a raw prospect. And I think he come in. He does fill a need because I think you guys are looking for that second boundary corner as well. So
Yeah.
let's get in here to the day 3 picks. Addressing that edge again with Mo Kamara. He's a little bit undersized, but he's a really explosive athlete. Hunter Norzad. This is where I think we kind of started to focus more on the position rather than the player. Although I'll say that, and I'm going to disagree with the very next pick. But I do think the Falcons at some point will address the offensive line, whether they invest in a player at left tackle as a developmental guy behind Jake Matthews, or if they invest in a guy to potentially take over at center as well. Because they did invest in Matthew Bergeron last year, because that left guard spot was probably the biggest weak point. Not that there were a lot of weak points on the Falcons offensive line to begin with, but excuse me. But I think investing in a center here would be good. And then Talia Tagovailoa, the quarterback from Maryland. You hinted at a quarterback from the Big Ten earlier on in the video. I think this would be a fantastic pick. To me, I actually think he has a better natural arm than Tua, his older brother. He is an older prospect, but again, I don't think he didn't just get a lot of help at Maryland. I think he actually has like some good quarterback traits. He's a good athlete, very undersized. I believe he's 5'11", 200 on a good day. But if you're going to take a swing on a quarterback late in the draft, I think this is not a bad one to take a look at.
Yeah. No, I think in this kind of how I prefaced it in the beginning, like in this scenario, like there's going to be a Russell Wilson that's your quarterback, or maybe Daniel Jones, because actually we did have the Giants take Drake May at 6 overall. So that means that they'd be moving on from Daniel Jones or some other quarterback, or they run it back with Desmond Ridder. I personally think Ridder should stay on the team. I mean, he does have 2 years of experience. You get essentially a full year as a starter. So I think he could be a serviceable backup. But you do go get a guy like, is it Tulia?
It's Talia.
Talia. You go get a guy like Talia, and who knows? Maybe if you develop him, you can find another diamond in the rough. But still, in that worst case scenario, he's just kind of like a Logan Woodside type of guy. It's like a third stringer. You can have him on the practice squad or the emergency quarterback just in case. But he does have a cannon. He can move out of the pocket. He can run really well. So that's just where you kind of find him at that point in the draft. I think there are other guys. I think Sam Hartman was still available. There was a couple other guys. The South Alabama quarterback was available. And I'm like, I just don't really like those guys. They don't have those natural traits of what a potential NFL quarterback could be. So in general, though, I like this draft for 7 picks. I mean, we round out our defense with getting 2 edge rushers. Mo Kamara is a guy I didn't even talk about. I loved watching him in that Colorado State game. Dude was a beast. He was all over the field. So that's just kind of that game always stuck with me. And so you go Dallas Turner, go him, round out with Max Melton there. We get 2 receivers with our second and third round picks, so I think you're going to have immediate day one impacts. Guys that are just very consistent also. So I'm pretty pleased with how this team overall is developing. And then I think if we get that center who can develop and just bring in more competition, like I think we're still trying to find the right guy to be our center. Matt Hennessy struggled a couple years ago. Drew Dahlman was in and out of the lineup with injuries, and verdict's still out on him. Then the guy Ryan Neasel. Sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing your name. He did a very serviceable job, during his time there. But at the end of the day, still that's probably the weak point I would say of this offensive line.
Yeah. So, all in all, I think it was just a really good draft for the Falcons. I will say one thing that we didn't do was trades. And if I do think the Falcons are targeting an edge rusher, I think they could potentially move back, acquire more picks, and continue to kind of build that solid depth there. But again, I think getting Dallas Turner at 8, I think you look at what the Texans paid for Will Anderson, and I think Will Anderson was a better prospect, but I mean, it was pretty close, like between the two on who was like the overall better edge rusher. And you never know, maybe Dallas Turner will translate better to the NFL. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this Atlanta Falcons 7-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.